I got a new song this week. But, oh, I know the words to this one. Come on, y'all know this one. I got a mask back here today. What is this? Look at this. It's perfect. Perfect. Loving you is like to my. Oh. Last week, I didn't know what was going on with that Tupac. I did the best that I could. But this week, I got a little Boys to Men on that mama. All right now. Hey. All right. Pause, Alexa. Pause. Alexa, pause. Look at that. You see that? She over here acting like the children. The children don't listen. Alexa don't listen. What do you guys got? A team effort? All right, so I hope that you guys have been trolling, positive trolling, on my Facebook because me and one of my therapeutic friends have begun a conversation just talking a little bit about how your relationship with your mother might have had an impact on your relationship with money, right? So we all know that on Money Mondays, I do my absolute best to bring you a conversation that will allow you to convert this conversation over into some cash. All right. And in honor of cash, I want to make sure that first you see it in your mind and then you hold it in your hand. So this is the part of the show where I like for you to open up your spiritual purse, open up your actual purse, open up your spiritual wallet, open up your actual wallet, whichever thing that puts you in the mindset of, you know what, money flows to me easily and effortlessly. And when it comes, I'm going to know exactly what to do with it. You ready? So get your number in your mind, whatever your number is. I got my number. You got your number? All right. So here we go. Y'all see, I got a new gun. Don't be acting up because I'm about to give these people some money. Whoa, that thing come fast. That money comes fast. It's not like how it used to be. I used to have like a little slow flow. This new Supreme, it has me looking like the money fast and green. Okay. All right. So that is the first part of the conversation that I wanted to make sure that I put some money in your spiritual purse or your spiritual wallet, whichever one that you connect to. Okay, I do have a few announcements before we get into the show today. So I need a little bit of your opinion about something. I have a client that is a florist, and what I would like for her to do with us is to do a digital floral workshop. Okay, I posted it on my page. I got absolutely no traction. So I didn't know if like my algorithm wasn't working for me or if you guys just wasn't interested in doing something like that. I find crafting to be very therapeutic. I find art to be very therapeutic. And you know, here at Person Empowerment, we believe that anything that you do for your mind is going to matriculate and have an impact on your money. So for those of you that are hanging out with us tonight, drop in the comment section so that I would know that you are totally interested in taking a digital floral class at the end of the month with one of my clients who has started a floral business. So drop in the comment section, interested, and then I know if I need to just take the class by myself or not. Okay, so another thing that I saw that you guys kind of just allowed to sit around was my love box. It's still here, right? So these conversations, although they're 30 minutes, they're power packed, right? And what I asked for you guys to win, right? No one took advantage of this. They had the opportunity to win my diamond pin. Here it is. This one says money making pin. So if you've been making money or you need to make more money, to just have this good affirmation holding it in your hands, I jump right on that. And then the Person Empowerment signature tee, it says, I get money, you get likes. Okay, so that's in the love box to the moms. And of course, my book, 10 things every woman should keep in her purse. So let me tell you how you win. The way how you win is that you have to make sure that you tag a friend in the comment section so that she's watching the show with you. You want to make sure that you share this episode, and then you want to email me. I'm going to drop my email inside of the screen that's going to go by. It's Shani@personempowerment.com. You have to take those 3 steps in order to win the love box. And then, depending on how many of you do it next week, I will go ahead and announce the winner. Of course, I like raffles, right? And that's what it's going to be. So drop a friend's name in the comment. share the post, and then send me your show notes. Say, Shani, I really love the episode. Here's what I learned. All right. Okay. So that takes care of the beginning. Let me know if you guys want to take the digital floral class and grab that bag back, okay? All right, so today's guest is a therapist, and she works with her clients to help them work on childhood trauma. I think that a lot of people, oftentimes, I feel that many people are still often relating to wherever they had like a huge trauma in their childhood, emotionally, like if that person was maybe 14, 15, 16, 18, 10, 8, 9, oftentimes when I delve into conversation with them or look at how they resolve conflicts, and I can see the correlation. Even if they don't tell me about it, I think to myself, there must have been an experience where this person just never really healed from. So here they are in their adulthood doing the absolute best that they can with the information that they have available to them, at that current time. So I do see a correlation between childhood trauma, whatever it might have been. You can give a name to it, right? And the way that they relate to conflict resolution. And I also see, when I'm working in depth with my clients through money therapy, I also see a correlation in how it has an impact on their relationship with money. So here today, we're going to have a combined conversation where Keachia Bowers comes in, and she's going to share with us some of the tools and techniques that she's been working with her clients to help them delve into some level of childhood trauma, seeing how that relates to some of their other relationships. Specifically today, we'll be highlighting money. And because it's Mother's Day, we'll specifically be keying on to how your relationship with your mother had an impact on the way that you relate to money. Okay, so Keisha's gonna join us now. Give Keisha some money, honey. Give Keisha some money. Hey, did you get that money in your spiritual purse?
I was like, wow.
I think that money be coming fast. That's you have to catch it fast. That's that Miami. That's that Miami. That Miami makes you.
I'm low key.
Okay. So let's get into the conversation as it relates to the relationship with money, and the correlation that you may find with women or men, and how are you seeing that sometimes people are less willing to take risk, right? So when it comes to investing, when it comes to purchasing a house, when it comes to putting money into an investment account or putting it in a savings account, how are you kind of seeing the correlation between, someone who's had some level of childhood trauma, be it with their mother, father, and their relationship with money? What do you kind of see?
Ooh, I'm excited. First of all, thank you, Shani. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I have so much to say, but as you know, I'm going to tell a story, right? So first, we're going to start with the wound, because a lot of people who are watching, they may not be sure if they even have a wound. So let's first start with identifying the age when you needed the most love and why you feel you needed that love. And then you can go and move forward from there, right? So that wound is, if you had a mother, so it's Mother's Day, we're talking about mother wound and money wound.
Yes.
You had a critical, unapproving, passive-aggressive mother who shut you down. She may have been a jealous mother, and maybe she didn't even know it. She had her own trauma, and it was projected onto you. You've developed some limiting beliefs about yourself naturally, and it's in the subconscious. You don't know. You drag it into your adulthood, and it's such a passive drag that we think culturally we become 18 and we're adults and we're living this adult life. But that child who needed the most love is the one who takes over. And so when you get triggered into anger, that's not someone just got on your nerve and you're annoyed. That is a sign of the wound that is showing up. Now, how does that relate to money? The relationship that we have with money, and I have my little nifty notes because I wanted to be prepared for you all tonight. But we go through a cognitive dissonance with abundance. Sometimes we hear these psychological terms and we think they're just about this trauma but When we're talking about money, when I say cognitive dissonance with abundance, I'm talking about if you experience something that negates abundance. If you were happy and your joy was taken away in some way, that negates abundance. If you were in an environment where you were emotionally responsible for an alcoholic parent, that negates abundance. Because if you know what I know, having an alcoholic parent, you can never satisfy that person. If you were emotionally responsible to care for your mother and she did not love herself, that negates abundance. So now you're placed in a position where you have a limiting belief that it is your job to chase joy. And we all know that money brings us joy. Oh, Sister Shani, what you think about that?
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. I'm with you. So I'm gonna correlate some of the things that you said, and I put together a couple of like possibilities, right? Because sometimes when people hear, and for me, they think that it has to be a very traumatic experience, right? Like they start thinking about molestation, they start thinking about murder, they start thinking about, living in a foster home. They start thinking about like the furthest possibilities to trauma, right? And in your conversation that you just shared with us, it was more of these subtle behaviors, right? These very subtle behaviors that oftentimes that we may not be fully aware that they're taking something from us, right? They're having an impact on the way that we relate to ourselves, the way that we relate to money. Okay, so I'm going to show those screens that I put together just in like my tenure of working with myself,
Okay.
and also when it comes to working with others. So I'm going to pull those screens up. If you can identify with any of the specific numbers, Keachia, go ahead and write down your numbers. Okay, so I'm going to pull those up here. Natasha, can we make those a little bit bigger? Is it possible a little bit bigger than that, or is that the biggest we can be? All right, so that looks like the biggest we can be. I'm going to get a little closer here for you. Okay, so here, 10 ways that your relationship with your mother could have impacted your relationship with money. Okay, so let's see the first one. All right, so this one is, my mama told me I better shop around. Perhaps your mother's love language to you was gifts, and she afforded you with a certain lifestyle or relied on credit, and you may not have the tools or the money knowledge to maintain a similar lifestyle on your own. I've had some I could say number one for me. I definitely have had a number one for sure. For sure. All right. So the second one was, give me what got you here. That's something my grandma used to say all the time. She said, girl, give me what got you here, right? Perhaps you grew up with a mother who had access to limited financial resources, and this caused you to carry scarcity into your adulthood, even after making a fortune, even after stabilizing yourself financially. Number two, give me what got you here is one of the ways that you relate to money. Mm-hmm. The third one is mommy dollar dearest. Your mother was just balanced. She positioned herself to give to you in a way that you felt loved and provided for, yet she guided you to having financial boundaries that govern your budget now. So as I share these with you, for me, my experience with my mother was a blend. It was a blend between 1 and 3. 1 and 3, where gifts was a part of the love language. So sometimes I found it a little difficult when I became an adult that, oh my gosh, I have to keep up with this lifestyle that was afforded to me. And then on the third one, it was a blend, right? So she also did very well at sharing with me in a way that I felt valued, I felt loved. And she did set up some financial boundaries that I definitely shared in last week's show. The next one, number 4, rob Peter to pay Paul. Okay, perhaps your mom operated from the space of financial frenzy where things weren't paid for on time, or you missed out on opportunities due to unforeseen cash circumstances. This in turn gave you a bit of budgeting anxiety and financial insecurity. That's that robbing that Peter to pay that Paul. All right, number 5, hyper financially focused. Perhaps your mother prioritized work over many things, and sometimes you missed your mother. So in turn, you crave more work-life balance where you can spend time and money. That's number 5, a hyperly financial Mom. Number 6 will be mother, may I. Perhaps all of your gifts were tied to a reward system, meaning if you do this, I'll do that. If you do this, I'll do that. If you don't do this, then I'm not going to do that. So love and money felt very conditional for you. Number 7, Mother Teresa. Your mom would give you and anyone else the shirt off her back, and often this left her ill-prepared to own her own financial responsibilities.
Yes.
Number 8, money doesn't grow on trees. Perhaps your mother's was distrusting of money and financial systems, thus making you leery of investing. And when it comes to making financial decisions, you tend to dwell there just a little too long.
Scarcity.
Number 9, the man was the plan. The man was the whole plan. Perhaps your mother was laissez-faire when it came to cash, okay? She just felt that it was her job to spend it and someone else's job to make it, and all the financial decisions that came along with it. The man was the whole plan, sis. That's what she thought or felt. All right, number 10. We're missing number 10, Natasha. Okay, so I think number 10, without us even showing it here, we can go ahead full screen because I'll talk about number 10. So number 10 was just like I forgot what I called that one. I can't remember, but I can remember how she related to money. So the number 10 was a mother who was just good with money. She was just good with it. Like you watched her, you watched her as an entrepreneur. You watched her take risks. You watched her take investments, and she took you along the way. So I think I would say that my relationship with money was a blend of those 3 types of moms. Number 1 would be, I was the only child for a very long time. So I had an abundance of resources around me all the time. So when I became adult and I was now responsible for this, I was like, I don't even know how I'm gonna keep up with this. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't know. The third one, I can recall some of the lessons that my mother and my grandmother passed along to me as it relates to money. So I had that toggle. And then number 10, my grandmother was an entrepreneur. So I watched my grandmother build social capital. I watched her build a legacy. Oh, there goes number 10 right there. Thank you, Natasha. Let's make it a little bit bigger. We called number 10 a super mom. If we can get that a little bigger so I can see it, I don't have to jump through the screen. Number 10, let's see this one. Your mother was just proficient when it came to profitability, and she included you on her financial journey. Sometimes there were losses, sometimes there were gains, but what you gained from it was a lot of wealth wisdom, okay? So my experience with developing a relationship with my mother was a blend between the relationship that I had with my mother and my grandmother. So I would be a firm 1, 3, and a 10. What about you?
So number 1, and thank you for sharing and that transparency too, because it takes so much to say, oh yeah, I'm a part of this. Everyone probably sees you as, but you're admitting that.
Yeah, but we all are. That's what makes you the most resourceful, is that you take your own pills. You understand? You got to take your own pills before you pass them out.
Look, definitely resonated with me as well. My mother tried to use her finances to make up for what was bad. So guilt, and I have here in my notes that I wanted to touch on that the number 1 negative emotion that's associated with the money wound is guilt, right? Guilt drives like many aspects of poor handling of money. So my mom had a major guilt wound. So she was always like overcompensating. And sometimes she did things for us that we really didn't earn.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't earn it.
Think of something like that was like a tremendous gift that you might have gotten like as a child.
It wasn't necessarily like a particular gift, but it was like, I'm gonna make some money. I'm gonna do this, and we're just gonna go shopping every week. We'll just go shopping. We'll just go shop. I didn't see any other kind of reward. It was more just like, I'll get you whatever you want. But if I
you can relate to number 1. You can relate to number 1. Okay.
And let's say I was sad about something that was naturally sad. She would say, you're so damn ungrateful. I just bought you everything that you wanted. And look at you. What are you crying for? You're spoiled. So it was like, they curse you for what they've built in you.
Yeah. So it was like, now from your experience with your mother, when it came to your grandmother, did your grandmother show love in the same way through gifts, or she was different?
Absolutely. That's what I mean. And that's when I say that it's generational. It gets passed down. My grandmother was well off and she was very detached, but her status and, culturally, status is such a big thing. I'm come from the Jamaican culture where it was like her status and she was able to, I can give you what you need, but that's it. That's all I really have. But my grandmother was very well business minded. That it was another number that you had where she had the tools, but she didn't teach you.
That one would have been no. All of them were no. So it was one where you were very financially focused.
Yeah.
I think that might have been number 6 or 7. So it's like when your mother is like, she really worked a whole lot. She worked a lot to accrue a lot. Yeah. So it was number 5, hyper financially focused. Yeah. Perhaps your mother prioritized work over many things, and sometimes you missed her. So in turn, you yourself crave more work-life balance where you can spend time and money at the same time. Okay. So you were like a 1 and a 5.
Yes, because my mother also overworked. She always had 3 jobs. And I took some notes for myself about my lessons. And I have here, you have to work hard for money. You have to work. My mother always had 3 jobs, always. And she cooked food on Friday nights and I had to help her.
Now, let me ask you a question. So in your experience with your mother, just to ask just a question for that, because see, a large part in just my own experience, my mother had me when she was 16 years old and my father was absent in the relationship. So one of the things that I like to consider is, my mother from a very holistic perspective. So like if I only see me as her daughter and see my mother as my mother, then it fills me with judgment because I have all these particulars and perspectives. But when I look at my mother from a holistic perspective, that my mother had me when she was a very young woman, right? On top of her having me when she was a very young woman, my father not being present. So also some of those gifts in my mind, no one has ever said this. My grandmother or my mother has ever said that, the abundance of the things that you received was kind of like to compensate for your father's absence, because, maybe, my dad wasn't there, but I had plenty of stuff. Like I had loads of stuff. So that provided a level of, your father's not here, but you have all of these cash compensating factors. This was never verbalized. These are just lessons that I've abstracted. So that leads me back to my question with you. When you think of your mother from a holistic perspective, was your father present, or was some of this overworking she was doing was to compensate for his absence?
There's a long story around that, but her compensation could have just been because everything for us growing up in the environment was from a place of lack. Like we don't have enough, but I'm going to work so hard and make it happen and give you what you need. It wasn't necessarily because I have siblings and all of us had different father experiences. Okay. So even though my father was providing for me, my brother's fathers weren't. She was frustrated. I had to deal, some of that. Yeah. If my father wasn't showing up in an immediate time, I had to deal. We all dealt with that. So there was some overcompensation. There was some makeup, but there was also some shame too. Like I have to appear like everything is fine and like I have it together. My mother's biggest thing was I've never had to beg anyone for anything. And when they see me and my children, we look clean and we look good. And so, but that wasn't the reality all the time.
Right.
And so there was also this thing about, money should be used to cover shame. And I'm going to be honest, when I was preparing for this, I discovered some things that I feel like I haven't even tapped into.
Of course, it's a journey. Yeah.
And taking my notes, and I was talking about, money is connected to our emotional safety. So how did you survive? If you look at your survival techniques, you're still doing that with money, right? Yeah. So my survival, I had a breakthrough when I changed my relationship based on my thinking, my thought patterns. So I had to shift my relationship. I had to forgive myself first for not.
What would you say the forgiveness aspect came in? What did you have to forgive yourself for?
I had to forgive myself for not being able to help my mother. I'm gonna go deep. I'm telling you, the note I took. I had to forgive myself for not being able to have a solution. I did not know how to make it right. I did not know how to fix. It wasn't my job. And I had
to trying to that maybe okay, so help me to catch up with you cognitively. So what would you say, what was it that you felt responsible for fixing? Like what did you have to forgive yourself for in the fixing?
So when we talk about the mother wound, we have to grieve, and we have to give ourselves permission to grieve what we could not give to our mothers. And you said it, you look at your mother from a holistic place. You couldn't give her another spouse. You couldn't help her figure out how to work with money. You couldn't fix it, but you saw the challenges because you were up there. It was visible. As children, we blame ourselves. We develop a certain level of hyper responsibility emotionally. And that's how we become codependent adults. Have you met an adult who fixes everyone else's problems?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, and I think I talked about that mom. I called that mom the Mother Teresa mom, where I'm speaking even with my clients where they live a very sacrificial life. You know, they live a extremely sacrificial life in terms of saying, yeah, like Mother Teresa is someone who, like you probably live with a mother that would literally give everything away, thinking that that would make the people around her happier, you know? In my experience, so we can leave that aside. Thank you, Natasha. In my experience, I would say that my childhood was so abundant. So I really didn't come into contact with any awareness as to some of the background noise in my experience. I never felt lack. I never felt like I didn't have. If anything, I probably was bratty. I was extremely bratty. I was very entitled. I like, it took me a bit in my adulthood to scrub myself of entitlement because of the amount of abundance that I experienced as a child, right? So I'm kind of glad that I had some of the cash conflicts that I had in my adulthood because it balanced me out so that I can relate to money and less from an entitlement. I started to begin to see the things that my parents did for me, you know, previously, or whatever it is that they did now, or however it is. Like, I stopped feeling the onus of like, you should do that, or, you know, this is how it should be. I really operated from, you know, hold on. There it is. I really operated from a place of entitlement, you know, like because of the amount of abundance. So I don't think I put that one there. I don't think I put that type of, you know, relationship, but that was right. Me. Yeah, that was my doing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely a thing because everything is connected to the original patterns that we learned. Everything in our lives. So how did you survive in your emotional trauma? Maybe not you, but to our viewers tonight. You know, how did you have to survive? Whatever you did.
So no. That doesn't mean that. So I'm just saying during my childhood, there was no lack. But once I got to adulthood and it was my responsibility to maintain what I had as that was traumatic. Let me tell you, that was traumatic because like I was accustomed to wearing like $200 jeans going into the mall. My grandmother just giving me her card. I'm just swiping it and da-da-da-da. There was a period where that all ended. And that is a large part of where, you know, and I don't really operate from a place of like, it's very difficult for me to operate from a place of blame because I see everything as like so much of a teaching experience that was given to me in a, you know, in a very divine way. So it's very difficult for me to be like, this, that. But what I can say is that when I had different financial experiences as an adult, number one, I had to confront my entitlement. That was a large part. It took me a while to get beyond that. It took me like a long time to not feel like someone owed me something. That I had a crash course in that for a little bit. That's like where I hung out. Secondly, I had to kind of like deal with my brattiness so that I can have a different type of relationship with money. You know, like I have to confront, you know, because I couldn't like going in like, and then, you know what else happened to me? I started operating from a poverty mindset because I couldn't keep up with that level. I couldn't. So for a while, I operated from like everything that I bought had come from the thrift store. Everything that I got, like if it wasn't on sale, I couldn't get it. Like if I didn't have a coupon, I wasn't going to have it. So, and you did a really good job at the beginning of talking about that because sometimes when you're dealing with some level of a a wound, you know what I'm saying? We always think that it's such a power punch. You know what I'm saying? Where someone's always yelling at you, name calling, da 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 da. No, that journey is there with money, no matter how aggressive the trauma was or how subtle these changes were in.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. And however you had to survive, that's the pattern that you bring into your relationship with money. So like if you, if you feel like you should be chasing it because of the idea of lack, then you might think, oh, it's going to be another big one that I wanted to touch on is like, you got sideways for a minute. Okay. Another big one I wanted to touch on was like, if you have a deep mother wound and you were deflated a lot by that person, you were brought down to size, you were criticized, you were ridiculed, maybe when you were happy, maybe when you were smiling, maybe there was that sense of you don't have the right to feel joy, right?
Tell me what that looks like. Tell me, give me verbiage for having an experience where a person might feel like you don't have a right to experience joy. What would you say that looks like?
You to shut up. Somebody telling you to shut up. Someone telling you to be quiet all the time when you're an expressive child. Being told that you're a brat. You're so spoiled. Those are all deflating. Being minimized in the most surprising way possible when you least expect, sometimes, and I specialize particularly with dealing with narcissistic abuse and the narcissistic mother. And what that means is in the relationship in childhood, it was more about her than you. So if you had an experience where it was more important for her needs to be met, or you were an extension of that mother, so image was important, how you talked, how you looked, we can't afford to have people thinking we don't have it. You got to look a certain way, be a certain way. I have found, and I saw one of the questions was like the women that I've worked with have suffered with relating to money because if they get money, you get your stimulus check. What is the belief? Oh, I got to keep it. I don't want to lose it. Because if you have a conditioning that when good things come, it's going to be taken away from you, then that means when you have an experience with something good like money, that same mindset, that same thinking. And that's why in the beginning, when we started, I talked about cognitive dissonance with abundance. If you had experiences that negated abundance is having more than enough. So if you had something that was taken away from you, if there was a parent who made promises they didn't keep, believe me, when you become connected to money and you're trying to get a promotion on a job, you're going to apply for it and you're going to sit in your car and you're going to say, they probably not even going to pick me. Do you see that? Do you see that connection? So,
yeah, I definitely see it.
It's very subconscious. It's very subliminal. Yes. And, I have here that we have to get to the place to heal from this deep connection that affects how we connect to money, because I'm telling you my own story in this. I suffered in financial abuse, and my mother would probably have a cow if she heard me say the words financial abuse. But what was happening was I never understood how I needed to connect with manifestation. If I needed something, my mother made me understand that I needed to come to her to get it. If I needed to take off from work and I was going to lose money on that day, she would give me the money that I would make that day. Oh, I feel so bad. Let me give you the money. But a week later, there would be the verbal abuse, or there would be the conflict. And what that taught me was when people are nice to you, even if they're mean, you should still take it. You should tolerate it. Right. So my relationship with money was hard. It was destructive. I knew that I could spend, and as long as I could go to my mom, I would get what I needed, but I didn't understand how to manifest for myself. I was not financially independent. And I have no shame in saying that, because I was able to transform that relationship through this understanding that we're discussing right now. You have to be willing to surpass your mother, not just with money and in outer exterior ways, but in the level of consciousness. So I love what you said, Shani, when you said you see your mother as a holistic person. If you understand that she herself had some trauma, then you know that your job is now to rise above that level of consciousness.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Evolve into greater awareness and understanding for yourself. You
Of
cannot
course.
repeat that pattern. So I love when you said that. It was
But it's better to, because then if you don't begin to see people from a holistic, in my own experience, if you don't see people from a holistic perspective, that means that you're unwilling to see yourself holistically, right? So if you only see someone for, hey, here is some of the challenges that they offer to my life, right? And you just see their shadow, but you don't see some of the light that they gave to you. You understand what I'm saying? Some of the sacrifices that they made. So I'm sure in the intent, unless someone just, I have seen in some very outlier scenarios where someone, their thought pattern is to just make your life a living hell. But in my experience, most of some of these challenges were not done so that they can create these dollar deficits in you. Like next month, we're going to talk a whole lot about, fathers, and how your relationship with your father creates a relationship with money, right? So just to delve in there just a little bit, if instead of I was talking about my mother, who was very present and, giving, overcompensating, doing the best that she absolutely could, but then I think about my father, who was just absent, right? I also look at him from a holistic perspective because my father was 14 years old, right? It took me a while to get to all of the 18. I'm sorry, he was 18 years old. And so when I think about my father and his positioning to me, and I look at him from a holistic, he was 18 years old. You understand what I'm saying? He was a child, right? So when I look at him from a holistic perspective, yes, was there abandonment? Was there challenges when it comes to that? Yeah. But when I look at him holistically, I can also look at me holistically and think about the role that I'm playing in my 8 and 10-year-olds, Nasir and Ali's life, in terms of them seeing me holistically. Because as much as I set in my mind to, teach them about money, maybe in some ways I may be making them a little begrudging, you know what I'm saying? I'm making them a little bit, rigid, and setting out to do my absolute best. So that's why I always kind of offer to, no victims, no villains, and kind of see people from a holistic way so that I can get my lessons, and then I can maneuver and use what you gave me, even in the after. Sometimes I have conversations with women, and I say, well, what did you learn from your mother? They say nothing.
Oh, no. And, my mother taught me so much. Like when y'all see me traveling to Africa and doing, my mother was such a hardworking woman. She didn't take no for an answer. If somebody told her no, she was looking for the next opportunity until she heard her yes. She never, ever, ever, ever quit. And so I love that approach because I had to look at that and get balance and take the meat. I had to take the meat and throw away the
bone. That's what you have to do.
I had to take the meat and throw away the bone.
Otherwise, you become a blamer, right? And sometimes when I'm working with my clients and I see them in the blame, and you talked a little bit about this in terms of seeing how, in order for me to get, in order to get something, my mother was always the conduit. She was always the conduit. So you wasn't much of a creator, right? You didn't see that. And but then when I look back at my experience where, I had this abundance and as a child, and then I got to a space where it's like, oh my gosh, you got to keep up with this. How are we going to do this? We don't really have any real skill sets to do this. But that's not necessarily like my mother parental problem. That's like an American kind of challenge, whereas we don't spend a whole lot of time teaching our children to be creators of money. We don't really do that. So if I kind of outlier my mother and say, hey, mom, you gave me this really great life, but here I am not really knowing, how to maintain it. It's, really from a child's mind, that entitlement mind, and, but you have to travel through those portals to get deep. A higher version of yourself, which is, you got to entertain them crazy thoughts, like that brain can, you got to get there. But, what I was saying in terms of, specifically for that's like an American challenge that we don't do a whole lot to teach our children how to create money. We really don't do it. Like we don't make them a part of the process. Me, realistically, had I been born maybe like in the 1930s, 1940s, I would have been a cosmetologist. It would have been a question about it. You understand? Because that is the family that I grew up in. That is, in fact, beauty is, in fact, my family's legacy. That's like what you should be doing. But probably, to offer some level of relief, no one forced me into, doing hair. No one forced me into the business. But had they forced me, I would have had some skills.
Yes.
Like I would have had some skills. So, waxing, weighing and doing the absolute best that they can, for that particular time, time, space. Yeah.
It's true. You know, because I saw my mother work so hard and she was a nurse's aide, I thought the way out of that was higher education. So I
Me too.
dived into getting like, I went from my bachelor's degree to my master's degree. I got a degree in Spanish. I was just like, I am not going to have 3 jobs. I
Right.
never, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like, but the principles of what it means to be a hard worker, I saw that and I
Yeah.
took that. And so I don't mind staying up late. I don't mind, you know, my mother used to have a Friday night jam session at our house.
Mm-hmm.
I was responsible. Her books were in a spiral notebook.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone bought, you had to put a dash for how much they bought, and you had to put a dollar amount, and you had to
She
put.
was teaching you entrepreneurship. She was teaching you about social capital. She was teaching you about trade and bartering. She was, you know, a prolific teacher, you know. So
I hated it. I wish that I invested in it because I really feel like my mom could have had her own restaurant that was booming. Her food was delicious. She's an entertainer. She's so social and sociable. Everyone loves her. She's always laughing and she had good music. And so I learned every when I show up in community and in spaces, people think, oh, Mr. Keachia, that's all my mom.
See,
That's
yeah.
all
So
my mom.
that is like that's social, you know, that's social capital, that's social transference, right? So oftentimes I do these experiences with my clients, especially when they have like these mother wounds, because when we only see whoever it is, we can put the mother there, the father there, the sister, the dog, the man, the cow, right? And we only see them from the space of the deficits that they offered us. Not that they're not important. They are important because they did offer some deficits, and attached to those deficits are some huge lessons that, you know, if we take them in, you know, distract from them, then we become a better person. If we just sit in the blame and the shame, we get nothing. We just blame and shame and like, this is somebody else's business. This credit card debt is someone else's business. You know, me not taking risks, this is someone else's business if we stay in that part. But if we stay in there long enough to get some of the lessons, then we move over into the gratitude so that we can see people from both spaces. Then we don't, because a large part that keeps a lot of people that I work with in the same place is unforgiveness. Unforgiveness will hold you hostage financially. Unforgiveness will hold you, you know, monetarily. You can't make any decisions. Number one, when you're living in unforgiveness, number one, you spend a large part of your life trying to show other people like you're not what they think that you are. So you spend a whole lot of money trying to do that. Like your neighborhood is not really where you want to live. It's like when these people come here, I want them to think and feel this about me. When you buy a car, it's not even the car that you want. You want somebody to feel in some type of kind of way. You understand what I'm saying? So these experiences, but when you get to a place of like, hey, there were some deficits and there were some real, you know, great moments. And now I can let this teacher go. I can let this teacher go. I don't need to keep learning about deficits. I don't keep learning about unworthiness. I don't need to keep repeating, you know, these same lessons. Like I'm ready for some new lessons. What are stocks at? What are crypto at? What are real estate? What are commercial property at? Like I'm done with it.
For that though, Shani, I have an activity for that.
Yes,
what I do with my women is I have them do a balloon ritual. So you have to write down what you're really ready to release. Those deficits, I love how you call it the deficits. Right? You have to write it. And you can do this as many times as you want, but you put it in that balloon and you write with a marker, a Sharpie around that balloon, whatever the message is that you're releasing with that list. And you have to send it off and wave. I know it's not super environmentally friendly, but any other kind of release, you can burn it. But if we can give ourselves and recurring, do it over and over and over again. I was telling you when we were preparing for today that this is from 2016.
What's
that manifestation book? This is my personal book. I had a shift in my relationship with money in 2016. And I started going on these 30-day periods of honoring my relationship with money. And what I did was I started off writing down all of my barriers to money attraction. So I would identify, because you know you can't heal what you're not willing to reveal.
Yeah, you can't heal what you can't confront. You can't even, how you go?
Shani, I started and I put here thoughts of not appearing needy. Look, July 18th, 2016. You just talked about that. Thoughts of not appearing needy. So I had a limiting belief that asking for help meant that I was needy. But
Yeah, yeah.
attract-
So I can see how that could relate back to, because sometimes like, now I can't say, now I can remember this being said to me, but I don't like, I don't see it as something that tied me and bound me. But I would remember my mom, like if I came home from with something that my mother didn't buy for me, my mom would say to me, don't bring nothing in this house from nobody else, right? And her way of doing that was, number one, making sure that I wasn't in relationships for material gain. That was one of the ways that she protected me from that. So sometimes we see some of the mothers with as being overbearing, but in a lot of ways, like when you think about, women who got into sex trafficking, when you think about women who were in these abusive relationships because, they weren't financially provided for, so they needed this conduit, so they made contacts with other people in order to like get this bracelet or get these shoes or get this. My mom said, don't bring nothing in here that didn't belong to no one, right? So depending on how I felt about that, let's say my mind was tied in a way like, gosh, if I'm accepting something from someone that my mother didn't give me, this is, what I'm saying? So you have to, in order to have these release, you have to be able to see things in duality, like give yourself the gift of duality. Because when you see it in singularity, you see all of it as negative. But when you see things in multiplicity, like, okay, yeah, it could have meant this, like don't ask nobody for nothing, but it also was protection, like where you didn't get into relationships that made you like financially bound to someone because what they were giving to you. That meant like, I gotta take your abuse, I gotta take this, I gotta take that because you can give me this, So yeah.
Yes. So, and that's another beautiful example. So someone said, what do you write on the balloon? Anything, the message that you're releasing, that you're letting go of. So like I was identifying my barriers, to what, to attracting money. So if I was releasing it, I would write that barrier, goodbye to not allowing myself to ask for help. Goodbye. Right. And so it's a goodbye. It's a goodbye note. It's a it's like I no more, not today.
So let me see. So excuse me. So when I like that as like a release. It's apart from the environmental friendly one. So there's like you can flush it down the toilet. You can take it, and tear it up into pieces. But what I like to do with my clients is I like to do the release and then like a replacement. Yes. So I like to see you let go, but I also like to see, okay, what are you now bringing in? So for an example, if you write down, you tear it up, you put it in a balloon, whatever your, getting rid of something is, to let it go, whatever. So what then would you now replace the thought with? You let go. Hey, every time I ask for something I'm needy, what are you now replacing the thought with?
And so that's also a part of the whole manifestation. So then now you create affirmations in alignment with what you want to experience. So I was affirming, I am deserving of abundance. One of my biggest affirmations, and this, like I said, started in 2016 for me, but I would say I love money and money loves me without guilt. Without guilt.
How would you say that, like, if someone had like a mother wound where, let's say the person, because like they didn't get a whole lot, for whatever reason, maybe the mother financially abused them because she said, if you do this, then you get that, right? Maybe she was like that. Or maybe she just didn't have it to give you. She didn't have it to give you. So some kind of way that made you feel like, okay, I'm unworthy of good things. What would be a good replacement thought for someone kind of dealing with that type of angst?
I am worthy of ease. Another one that I said a lot of was, I rest beneath the fountain of abundance.
Oh, you know what else I like? I am worthy of support.
Oh, yes. Oh, Shani.
I am worthy of support. Yeah, I am worthy of support,
Worthy of support.
Yeah, there are people that are around me that does not look at the fact that, that I need something. It doesn't mean that I'm less than. It just means that I need something, Like if I need sugar, it means that I don't have it at this time. It doesn't mean that I'm broke. It doesn't mean that I don't have. It doesn't mean. So really just kind of delving into some of this background noise as it relates to your relationship with money, it makes it easier for you to, save, share, and invest, Oftentimes when I'm working with my clients and like I'm looking at like every time like you mentioned this too, as soon as you get your stimulus check, like you gotta blow it because you're just not used to seeing money. Like you just grew up in such a financial frenzy that like you honestly see people that will go and recreate frenzy because that's normal to them. It is abnormal money in their account. What is normal is overdraft protection, you know, not having the money, a negative account. So they will do things, even though they came into money, they will go out, financially exploit themselves so that they can live in their normality. Yeah. So until they get someone with the type of eyes that can see, like, hey, this isn't really about like your lack. This is really about, you know, your relationship you're not accustomed to having. So sometimes I'll literally just have my clients, if they, you know, make a certain amount of money when they get paid, I'll make them stare at the money in their account for like 5 minutes, like just stare at it.
Yes.
And then write a list about what you're going to do with the money before you get it. Like, what exactly are you going to do with this money before you get it? Because sometimes they can be hot hands if they have that trauma in their mind where, like, you know, I'm accustomed to living in trauma. That's what we do.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos.
They
And
don't
that's why I said
they don't even
earlier,
know it. Yeah.
how did you survive? If your survival mode was chaos, that's your relationship with money. That question, how did you survive? Self-worth and the act of receiving is what I wrote down here. Self-worth and the act of receiving, all connected to the original patterns of safety and trust from our relationship with our mothers. That's what I wrote. Preparing for tonight. Girl, you have me.
Really like that. I really like that. Okay, so we done talked up over our time. We're gonna close out. I'm gonna go ahead and close out. Natasha, you can single screen me. If you guys still want to be a part of this conversation, we're gonna go give a love to our IG audience. So we're gonna go right over there. And I'm just gonna do just some close out things. If you guys have really enjoyed this conversation as we connect the relationship to our mothers, to our relationship with money, hopefully you were able to at least begin to start this conversation in your mind and see how it's relating to your relationship with money. And hopefully there were some tools that you actually picked up from me and Sister Keachia, right? Keachia talked a lot about some of the things that she does for her clients in terms of, you know, identifying that, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe you're an autopilot, right? Maybe you are an autopilot, you look at your savings account and then the money is just gone, right? Maybe you're always paying things late. Maybe you're always having to pay late payments on things. Maybe when you go into the store, it's very easy for you to buy something for your children, but you can't really buy anything for yourself, right? So I think some of those things should prompt you to like, maybe I need to have a sit down, a conversation with my money journal. If you don't have one, get one, right? Even me, I still have this. Sometimes it may take me a little bit of time to make a financial decision just because, again, I don't really recall much money trauma in it was like stabilization. I had to maintain and keep up with, you know, my starting point. So that created some bit of cognitive dissonance for me, right? Ways that I did with it. Number one, I became aware of it. That's number one. Number two, being able to take my lessons from it, right? So oftentimes when I ask my clients, well, what kind of things did you learn from your mother? They move over to blame. They talk about everything their mother didn't teach them. And I'd like to see them go to the other side. Was your mother a hard worker? Was your mother teaching you to survive? Was your mother teaching you to make different choices through negotiation, through unwillingness to kind of settle? Like, so many different things are there, okay? All right, so now that I've kind of rattled your money chain, right? Since Keachia did talk about how you could do like this two list. Number one, go ahead and just let it go. Find a way, whether if you put it in a balloon, whether you flush it down the toilet, whether you take it and you put it in tiny little pieces and throw it in the garbage. That's something that I've done when I see like a constant mental pattern just coming in and running the show. Like, I really don't like for 18-year-old Shawnee to run the show, because when she run the show, she we don't let her run the show around here, right? And when she come out, I'm like, this is what she's telling me to do. This isn't wise, you know. She has a lot of limited beliefs, and she operates from a place of survival. I won't like 18 Shawnee to come out. 18-year-old Shawnee, when she first got to college, we don't want her to run the show, right? And then we talked about replacement. So if you notice, hey, here are some of these habits that I have. Here's how I think and I relate to money. How can I begin to replace this behavior, right? Start thinking about, okay, you know, maybe I overspend because maybe I grew up with too much. Let me see how I can curb that a little bit. Maybe it takes me too long to make decisions, you know, because I don't really feel secure. Maybe I can do this just a little bit. Okay. So I think one of the hugest gifts that we received today was a combination between releasing those things that no longer serve us and then creating space for the things that do. I hope that you have gained at least one thing that's going to add some value to your money, your purse, or your wallet. I got so excited, I lost my mind, sis. Until next time. Oh, hey, and for those of you that are in, if you want to join the digital floral event, please drop it in the comment section, or I'm just going to do it by myself and put the pictures in my story, sis. Okay. Later.